right, it is on the hour. Welcome everybody. Hi, I am Denise. I'm from Affordable Degrees Abroad, and you are here to learn about how to get your master's or PhD in New Zealand. And I want to say I'm really excited. We had almost 300 registrations for this webinar, and what this tells me is a few things. One is this is a growing movement in the United States. And I think there are a lot of US students that are like, is there a better way to do this? And the second thing it tells me is New Zealand is really attractive. So anyhow, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up for yourself. So if you are here, I know a few things about you. I know that you are adventurous. I know that you value your education and really want to advance your career. And I know that you really want to live a global life. And so that could mean different things. It could mean that you want to grow your global skill set. Could mean you want to get your degree abroad. And for some of you, it also means, hey, I want to work abroad too. So if that sounds like you are in the right place. So here are the Kiwi universities we're going to hear from today. We've got the University of Auckland, Massey University, University of Otago, Victoria University of Wellington, and the New Zealand College for Chiropractic. And also we have special guests from Education New Zealand, and you're going to hear from all these amazing individuals today. So I'm really proud to be part of this team. There's a lot of information download you're going to get. And so if you don't already have a pen and paper, go and grab it. You're going to want to take notes. I will also be sending this webinar out to all of you who registered. It will take a few days to get the technology downloaded, but you will have this and you'll also be able to rewatch it and reach out with questions afterwards. So I want to get started by understanding who you are in the room. So I've got a little poll here. You've probably done polls before, and I've got 3 questions. So just take a moment, scroll through. The first 2 questions are about finances. Are you concerned about the high cost of university? And do you already have debt and are worried? Now, all of these questions are going to be anonymous, and I will just be, in a few seconds, we'll be posting all the information so you can see too. All right. And the third question has to do with your path and sort of what you sort of already know about doing a degree abroad and maybe what you're looking for too. So you've got about 5 more seconds to finish up. All right, I'm going to show you, this is what we're going to see right now. So you can see with the clear winner, do you have concerns about high cost of university in the US? This is 75% of us. Oh my gosh. And I will say, I fall into this camp too. Do you already have debt and are worried about going deeper? So it looks like the winner here is sort of, there must be a better way. And the third one is, have you heard about getting a degree abroad, but you're not really sure the values or the steps to take? And it looks like the vast majority here, 72%, I'm new to this and need more guidance. So you are, again, in the right place. That's what you're going to learn today. All right, so let's move on to our next slide. Oh my gosh. All right, I want to just do a quick introduction of who I am. My name is Denise Cope, and I am the president of Affordable Degrees Abroad. And I have worked in higher ed for about 20 years, and I was mostly in international ed. I sent 4,000 US students to about 150 universities abroad. So I have this global view of how things work. At the same time, like many of you, I was really concerned about the high price of higher ed and was like, you know, I think I know a better way. And so my mission is to be a guide for students to sort through all the choices of doing a degree abroad. And I also have lived and worked abroad myself, and this is something I'm just passionate about, and I know it's deeply touched my life, and I'm hoping that to be able to share this knowledge with you so you can have those same experiences. I want to turn it over to Du Bois and Lewis from Education New Zealand, and they're going to do a quick intro of themselves too.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Du Bois Jennings. I'm the Director of Engagement at Education New Zealand. I've been in the international education field for about 12 years now, having spent 7 of those years living and working in Japan. In the US, I've worked on university campuses as well as for a study abroad provider where I manage partnerships with colleges and universities in the Northeast. My background is mainly in student and professional development as well as diversity, equity, inclusion in regards to education abroad. In my role as Director of Engagement for ENZ, I'm passionate about finding unique ways to engage US students of all ages about the benefits of an education in New Zealand, with a particular focus on marginalized student populations in higher education. And I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Lewis.
Kia ora koutou. Hello, everyone. My name is Lewis Gibson. I'm the Field Director for North America at Education New Zealand. I've been with Education New Zealand for about 5 years now. The last 2 of those have been spent in Washington, D.C., where I work to promote New Zealand as an education destination along with Du Bois. Thanks for joining us today.
All right, thanks guys. Let's keep moving. The next slide, if I can get there, is the goals for today. So here's what we're up to. We're going to talk about the value of a master's degree or Ph.D. abroad, and in particular a New Zealand degree. We've got 5 Kiwi universities that are joining us. So shout out to all the reps that are here to be able to support those universities. And we're also going to talk about financial aid abroad. Now, if you are a non-US citizen, some of this will not apply to you. So FAFSA, 529 plans, and GI Bill are all for US citizens or permanent residents. But still stay on the line because I think a lot of the information is relevant, and also the scholarships are relevant for all students. And then we're going to ask some questions so you know, are you a good candidate for doing a grad degree abroad? We're going to clarify some next steps. And then we've got time at the end for Q&A. Now, you've probably all done a million Zoom webinars and are familiar with Q&A, but I just want to show you how we're going to do it for this session. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see Q&A. That's where you're going to type in your questions. What we're going to do is sort them out. Those questions that I think are going to have the most bang for the buck, we're going to save those to at the end for everybody. But there's also all of the university representatives that are on the line are also going to be popping in there and answering questions. So keep checking the Q&A to see what's happening there, because I think you're going to get a lot of answers through that. So at any point, pop a question in there. Now, the chat feature is going to be used in a different way. Chat is, I want to use chat for this webinar to uplift and to inspire. Doing a degree abroad can be amazing and it can be scary. And so I want to make sure as a community, we're building a movement of students who are trying to support each other to do this work. And so as you're watching this, you're like, oh my God, I didn't know about this. This is amazing. Just pop that in there. Let's just try to create community. And we're using the chat feature for love and inspiration. All right, so let's launch into a value of a degree abroad. So the #1 question I always get is, how much does this cost? So doing a degree abroad, there's a whole range in here. So it can be anything from $0 tuition dollars, and that tends to be Germany and Norway, to, on the more expensive side, around $35,000. And those tend to be more in Australia and some UK programs. New Zealand falls in the middle. The second question I always get is this a real degree? How do I know? So I'm going to teach you how to know and how to do a little research here. So one of the things you should just know about and pay attention to is there's something called QS rankings. and Times Higher Ed rankings. So in the US, we are most familiar with US News and World Reports, but this tends to have a very narrow US focus. So if you want to see how everything stacks up together in the world, these are really good resources for you. And they also give you subject area rankings too. So if you're looking to see what are the top engineering programs in the world, it will also help you do that. Now these mean something and these don't mean something. QS and Times Higher Ed tend to be, these rankings are really driven by research and reputation. And so there's some places, I'll give you an example. I live in Colorado. Colorado College is an amazing college here in Colorado. It's not ranked in QS and Times Higher Ed. Doesn't mean it's not good, it just means it's not ranked. But I want you to make sure you know that these are resources so you can check it out. Also, find out, are the programs industry recognized? Many international programs are. An example is AACSB and EQUIS. These are business accreditations, and it's sort of like the gold star in industry. So find out what the accreditations are also for your particular field of interest. The other value is, of course, you get to develop global skills and build your network. And I will say this is amazing because I know of students who've done this, and now they have friends from all over the world because they did a master's program abroad that had a strong international focus, an international student body. And then the biggie that I know, there are some students on this call right now, and I know that they're on this call to learn about how do I work overseas? I want this. This is driving the bus. So there are 5 countries that offer post-work or post-study work visas. And these are New Zealand, Australia, UK, Canada, and the United States. So we'll talk more about New Zealand in a little bit. So let's do a deep dive into New Zealand. Here are some general costs in regards to tuition and living expenses. Masters around 17 to 22,000. These are US dollars a year. PhD around 5,000 to 6,000. Keep in mind some more specialized programs may have some higher costs attached to them. Now, living expenses can vary widely by student. This is an estimate that gives you a good idea of what it can cost in New Zealand. Of course, it can be more expensive if you're living a really extravagant life. All right, now it's time to raise the roof. Most programs in New Zealand do not require the GRE. So yay. And most programs, there's no application fee. So this is sort of a no-brainer. Like, why not even apply to a degree in New Zealand? This is really useful. Finally, I want to highlight New Zealand. If one of your goals is to work abroad, New Zealand offers one of the most generous packages in the world. It's 3 years post-study. And I'm going to turn it over to Du Bois and Lewis, and they're going to expand more on all of this information right now.
Kia ora everyone, this is Lewis here. So right from the start, I wanted to clear up a few things that us Kiwis often hear in the States. So first of all, we are not a part of Australia. New Zealand is its own country. It's very distinct, very different. Number 2, we have no natural deadly predators in New Zealand, which means we have no snakes. And thirdly, yes, we do call ourselves Kiwis. So we're named after the bird, which is a native bird in New Zealand, and the fruit is also named after the bird. And no, it's not offensive to call us Kiwis. So please do. So New Zealand is a small island nation in the South Pacific. As you can see, it's about 12 hours from Los Angeles, about 12 hours from Singapore. It's about 12 hours from Chile. So looking at the map, you could say it's the center of the world. It's a very multicultural place with large populations of Pacific people, particularly Polynesians, Asians, and European people. The mythology of New Zealand is that it was fished out of the water by Maui, who you might know from Moana, who's a Māori demigod, and the Māori are the indigenous people of New Zealand. So sometime around the 14th century, a Māori explorer named Kupe discovered New Zealand, which led to a big migration of people across the Pacific to settle in New Zealand, similar to other mass migrations in the Pacific. A couple of hundred years ago, scores of Europeans started arriving, which led to the Treaty of Waitangi being signed, which was a treaty between the British government and Māori chiefs, and which is referred to as New Zealand's founding document. So New Zealand became a British colony. In the 19th century, there was a big gold rush, which saw huge numbers of Chinese migrate to New Zealand. And over the last century, there's been a huge migration of Pacific people to New Zealand. So all of this has led to Auckland, which is New Zealand's largest city, to become the largest Polynesian city in the world. And it's actually the world's fourth most diverse city. It's more diverse than New York. It's more diverse than Los Angeles. It's more diverse than London. There's over 200 languages spoken there. Our unique history makes New Zealand an interesting place and distinct from other Western nations. We have 3 official languages: English, Te Reo Māori, and New Zealand Sign Language. And Māori culture and language is commonplace throughout New Zealand. So you'll most likely hear my Kiwi colleagues who are on the call today say kia ora to welcome you to their session. Kia ora is hello, be well, very similar to aloha. So New Zealand has a history of progressiveness. For example, in 1893, women won the right to vote. And in doing so, New Zealand became the first country on earth where this happened. Today, New Zealand's known for being a friendly and welcoming people. It's known for its beautiful nature, and it's known for its fantastic work-study-life balance. In terms of public health, so New Zealand has handled the COVID situation relatively well. Next slide, please, Denise. There we go. So the country entered a nationwide lockdown early on, which resulted in New Zealand going COVID-free for over 100 days. There are current cases of COVID in New Zealand, which is mostly from returning New Zealanders. And international students who are currently in New Zealand can receive publicly funded treatment and care for COVID-19. However, the border is New Zealand's first line of defence, and right now it is currently closed to international travellers, and that includes international students. So international students will not be permitted to return to New Zealand until at least the end of 2020. But with that being said, now's a great time to plan for the future, and so I'm going to pass to Du Bois to give you more of an overview.
Thank you, Lewis. So I just want to give a brief overview of some of the features of a graduate degree in New Zealand. Later in the webinar, you will hear from individual institutions that will go into greater detail about their specific universities and programming. So all 8 of New Zealand's universities are government funded and internationally respected for their academic and research performance. Your degree can be taken in any of the wide range of arts and humanities, business, science, or specialist subjects offered by our universities. All the universities are located throughout New Zealand. All 8 of the New Zealand universities are rated among the top 3% in the world, according to the QS World Rankings. That's the world rankings that Denise mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. In this presentation, the 5 institutions you'll hear from all accept FAFSA, or US federal financial aid. One unique aspect of studying in New Zealand that Denise already mentioned is the work while you study opportunities. As a taught master's student, you'll be able to work part-time while you study and full-time during holidays. 2 years master's students who do research and a thesis are able to work full-time all year. And in addition, as a master's student, you can support your partner's work visa. Your partner can then support a student visa for any dependent children, and they won't have to pay international student fees to attend New Zealand primary or secondary schools. You'll be eligible to work for up to 3 years in New Zealand after completing your master's degree. The minimum entry requirement for an 18-month or 2-year program is a 3-year bachelor's degree from a New Zealand institution or overseas equivalent. Now I'll talk a little bit about PhD programs in New Zealand. Everything I mentioned in terms of work visas and partners' work visa apply to PhD programs as well. However, PhD students can work full-time through the duration of their degree. To be accepted to study for a PhD, you have to show that your academic qualifications prove you have sufficient knowledge of your chosen subject area. You'll also have to show that you have the skills and ability to carry out independent research. Your work will be expected to make significant contribution to understanding in the field of your study. PhD programs in New Zealand are similar to programs in other countries. You'll work under supervision to carry out your own original, in-depth work into an approved subject, and will present your findings in a thesis. The research for a PhD usually takes 3 or 4 years of full-time study. Your thesis will be marked by a panel of external examiners, and there may also be an oral examination to test your knowledge of the subject area. Now you'll hear from my colleagues at the different New Zealand universities.
Hi everyone, my name is Sandra. I work at Massey University Massey University is known as the truly national university of New Zealand because we're the only university that has 3 campuses in different cities of New Zealand. Plus, we are the leaders in distance education. So there you see a full map of New Zealand, and you'll see, and we like this as an introduction because you can see the full range of what New Zealand is. Down in the south, if Denise, you can point out on into Otago. When Dunedin is the city, Otago University is down there, and we'll have a presentation from Otago as well. In Christchurch, we have another couple of universities, so that's where Denise is pointing right now. And we are fully fledged, as Dubois and Lewis said. All New Zealand universities are highly accredited. The ones that are presenting today are the ones that were available to do a presentation, right? Massey University as a whole, as I said, has a quite unique sort of presentation because we have the 3 campuses plus distance, which means we are teaching to students from the whole country. We are not focused on only Auckland, only Palmerston North, Wellington. We have been teaching distance since 1970s, which actually made our distance education pretty advanced in every single way. So when COVID-19 hit, we were the ones that were the most flexible into, hey guys, we cannot see you in class anymore, let's continue from home. We had absolutely no big deal in doing that switch. We are also offering it now. If by February next year you cannot come, you are able to start online and then come over to New Zealand once the borders are open again. Next slide, please. So basically, to give you an idea, Massey University is highly ranked in all possible areas. It has to do with the history of the university. Massey started as a college of agriculture and spread from there. It was the first university that offered an MBA. It's also very strong in food sciences, food processing, technologies, engineering that is related to all the process of things that happen in New Zealand. Once you're dealing with food and agriculture, you will be dealing with the health of population. What do people need to eat? How do you keep the food in a state that can be last longer? Why do people eat some sort of things and not others? So our health sciences program is pretty strong in anything that keeps population healthy, moving into sports, how much exercise people need to do to stay healthy. How do we prevent a virus to spread? So epidemiology is also quite strong. Once you have that, you think, well, for a country to progress, you need also the humanities, which is psychology, sociology, with a country as diverse as our Education New Zealand people presented, those sort of things, history, education. We're very strong in specialized education. And then you have, well, a country needs creative arts. What happened with Massey University is Massey absorbed the oldest school of art and design in New Zealand, which means our creative arts college is older than Massey University itself. Just to give you an idea on the rankings, based on what I just told you, we are in the QS rankings, 28 in veterinary sciences, 29 in agriculture, top 100 in art and design, top 150 in education or communication. If you go into the Shanghai rankings, which is another international accreditation organization ranking, we have 75 in food science and technology, 150 in business administration. We are also very much geared into our degrees being recognized worldwide. So we are accredited for vet sciences, food technology, arts and design, business, social work, engineering, construction, journalism, logistics, specifically in the US. Your degree will be accredited in the US after you graduate at Massey. Scholarships, there you have a selection of what is available. New Zealand 8 scholarships are organized by the New Zealand government. Then we have what we would call in the US more a discount. We call it a scholarship, which is basically 5,000 New Zealand dollars less on your tuition fees per year of studies. So if you're doing a 4-year degree, it could be 20,000 New Zealand dollars discount for the term that you're studying. And I pass it on to University of Auckland.
Thanks, Sandra. Kia ora. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna, and I work at the University of Auckland. We are proud to be New Zealand's largest and highest ranked university with 43,000 students. 10,000 of those students are studying a master's or Ph.D. and a global ranking in the top 100 in the world. As an island nation in the Pacific, sustainability is at the heart of our research and teaching. And this has been most recently recognized by our #1 world ranking in the University Impact Rankings, which explores how universities are addressing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We are located next to the city centre of New Zealand's largest city, which means we have direct links to many of New Zealand's largest and most innovative companies. And we foster these networks for our students by embedding internships and industry connections into our master's degree programs. While our campus is located in the heart of Auckland, it still has a distinctive campus vibe while also being a few steps away from everything that's happening in the city of 1.5 million. As a city, we're ranked in the top 3 most livable cities in the world. And as a student, that means that you get to live in a dynamic and diverse city while also having easy access to great surf spots, volcanic mountains to hike or ski, and idyllic islands to wander and visit wineries. You can even study a Master of Wine Science on Rahiki Island, a short 30-minute ferry ride away at a winery owned by the University of Auckland. Next slide, please. As a large university with 8 comprehensive faculties, it's difficult to highlight the full spectrum of possibility at the University of Auckland. I do recommend exploring our website. You can even create your own virtual campus and learn more about our faculties. Many of them have subjects ranked in the top 50 in the world. I've highlighted a few that showcase our focus on renewable energy or highlight our connections to the United Nations or demonstrate our dedication to public health and how we're supporting New Zealand's efforts with containing and eliminating COVID-19. Next slide, please. We offer over 15 million worth of scholarships each year to international students. So in addition to US financial aid, there's opportunity to reduce the cost of your master's or PhD. As an emerging leader and innovation in entrepreneurship, the University of Auckland is a great place to explore how you might start a business around your research. Join our Velocity Challenge and you could win $100,000 towards your startup venture. This focus on innovation, of course, extends to our 60 research centers and the future focus of the university. And of course, as a graduate student, you get access to New Zealand's world-leading post-study work rights, which means you can stay and work in New Zealand after you graduate. One of our graduates from the Master of Urban Planning was a Fulbright scholar who is now redesigning Auckland's waterfront in preparation for the global sailing competition, the America's Cup. There are many possibilities at the University of Auckland, so please reach out if you'd like to learn more, and I'll pass it off to Otago.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Anna. Kia ora, my name is Lauren, and I am from the University of Otago. The University of Otago is New Zealand's first university, and we were established in 1869. That means last year we actually celebrated our 150th anniversary, so we are very proud of our rich history and tradition. Otago is what you'd call a true destination university, where more than 85% of our students come from outside of Dunedin or the Otago region. So they're travelling from all around New Zealand and the world to study our broad range of offerings that include health sciences, business, science or STEM, humanities and the liberal arts or social sciences. Not only is our student population very national and international, but our academic and teaching staff are also incredibly diverse, with 75% of staff coming from outside of New Zealand or having completed the highest qualification from overseas. So it's certainly a very diverse environment. Students choose Otago for the variety of academic offerings and to be taught by experts in their field. But they also choose Otago for the outstanding overall student experience and the true residential campus environment. The main University of Otago campus is located in the city of Dunedin, which is on the southeast coast of the South Island of New Zealand. Dunedin is not a large city. We have a population of around 130,000, but our student population in Dunedin is around 25,000. So it is a true educational city. Dunedin is what we call a 10-minute city. So the campus is in the city, which means within a 10-minute walk, you could be at a number of restaurants, cafes, bars, shops. But in 10 minutes, you could also be at the Botanic Gardens, bike tracks, hiking trails, as well as being close to a number of beaches and some incredible wildlife on our Otago Peninsula. The location makes us attractive not only for immersing yourself in field work or field research in almost every type of environment, but it also allows you to make the most of an amazing lifestyle, particularly for people who like the outdoors. Next slide, please, Denise. Otago is home to a number of highly ranked programs, as well as unique programs. We have New Zealand's only dental school, which is ranked 33rd best in the world and has recently opened a brand new clinical services building. So we have some of the top state-of-the-art equipment. We are home to New Zealand's only school of surveying, and we are New Zealand's first medical school, with medical campuses located here in Dunedin, in Christchurch and in Wellington. And we also have a dental clinic up in Auckland. Many students choose to undertake a research master's degree in a whole variety of disciplines. However, I've highlighted some of our popular taught master's programs here. Sport and exercise science at Otago is ranked 13th best in the world. We've got some incredible facilities. We have one of the world's largest science communication programs, and our online MBA is ranked 10th best in the world. Next slide, please, Denise. We're delighted to offer a range of scholarships for both coursework masters and research masters, along with some incredibly attractive PhD scholarships. More information about scholarships, application processes, and of course, course and any other information is also on our website. Thanks.
Tēnā koutou everyone. My name is Fiona Mann and I'm from Victoria University of Wellington. So we are located in Wellington, the beautiful capital city of New Zealand. As well as being the centre of politics, we're also known as the cultural capital of New Zealand. We're home to the national archives, museums and libraries, and the base for foreign embassies and the public service. Wellington is a vibrant and creative city, rich in art, heritage, music, theatre, and a thriving digital and film industry. This is a beautiful picture of our city. It actually looks like this today. There's just a few clouds, which is really nice. As a vibe, Wellington, I think, has an urban, hip, young, and innovative vibe, and it's got a really welcoming and diverse population. We have 500,000 people, and what a lot of people describe Wellington as a good sized city. It's not too big, it's not too small. You can walk everywhere. And I think this is really great for students who are looking to experience something new independently. It's really easy to make Wellington to feel like home really quickly. You have everything you need within this image: the city, the museums, the university's 3 campuses, and you're also surrounded by ocean and mountains. We have 22,000 students at the university, 17,000 undergrad, 5,000 grad students, and about 3,600 international students from over 140 countries around the world. Next slide. We have a comprehensive offering at Victoria University of Wellington with over 200 subject areas, many of which are ranked, well ranked, and some in the top 100 worldwide. We have business, humanities, social sciences, science, architecture, design, IT, engineering, health, law, and education. I've just picked out some of our popular ones, which we have a lot of US students like to study in New Zealand. So we have our science programs are all very popular. In particular, our climate, environment, marine biology programs. Due to New Zealand's geographic location and biodiversity, it's known as a scientist playground, so a great place to come and study. Wellington is also a science hub in New Zealand with more scientists and science organisations than any other city. As a capital city university, we're located with a centre of innovation, entrepreneurship, policy making and creativity. So students really benefit from our strong connections to government, industry and leading national organisations. Our law school and our business school are right across the road from Parliament. So really easy access to those types of people and groups. Next slide. So this is my last slide. This is just one of our alumni, David, who studied a Master of Environmental Policy Management, and he's currently a project manager at Tesla. Basically, in a nutshell, he said studying overseas was one of the best experiences, and in most of his roles, what got him through the door was his international experience. That's my 3 minutes.
Hello everyone, I'm Catherine. I'm with the New Zealand College of Chiropractic. We are a private tertiary education provider located in Auckland, and we are the only chiropractic college in New Zealand. We are highly regarded by chiropractors worldwide, with many chiropractors referring interested students to us. And what makes us stand out is our international reputation and accreditation, our small class sizes, and our family culture, which we foster and which is very supportive. Our students, staff, and faculty are all working together as we have a common vision with a world of people expressing optimal potential. We strive to make a difference in our community, and the world-renowned Center for Chiropractic Research helps us by providing the latest research for our evidence-based curriculum. Next slide, please. So to give you a bit more of an insight into our program, we offer the Bachelor of Chiropractic. This is a professional 4-year degree, which is equivalent to what you might know as a DC program. Usually DC programs, that means Doctor of Chiropractic programs in Northern America, are usually 3 years of undergrad plus 4 years of postgrad. We operate a little bit different. No full undergrad degree is needed for us. Our degree is structured in a 1-year prerequisite study plus 4 years of study with us on our campus. We focus equally on the philosophy, science, and art of chiropractic, and we have one of the highest practical requirements worldwide of all chiropractic colleges, with our students completing over 500 patient visits in our in-house chiropractic center. Part of that, and as one of the highlights of our students' studies, is a chiropractic abroad trip to the Pacific island of Rarotonga in their year 3. You can see the photos there on the side. And students usually come back from that trip really buzzing and fired up to look after their own community, creating their own practices here on our campus. With all that experience under the belt, our grads are very sought after, and many have job offers even before they graduate. Next slide, please. So to get your journey started with us, looking at the application process, we don't focus on GPAs. We actually rather want to really get to know you and your passion for chiropractic. You do need to complete 5 specific prerequisite courses plus 3 electives that you can see listed there. And often these are covered by probably the first couple of years, for example, by pre-chiropractic pathways, kinesiology degrees, health science degrees. And if you want to know if you have maybe even covered these prerequisites, then get in touch with me. You can see my email address and my phone number there, and you can find out more in-depth information and watch videos of students and their stories on our website. Thank you very much.
Oops, hold on, let's go back. All right, no, this is going the wrong way. Hold on here. All right, I want to talk about financing your degree abroad, because probably many of you have questions around, right, how do I make this all work? So as mentioned already, all of these institutions have FAFSA, and they accept FAFSA, and you would apply through the US FAFSA site. These are for loans only, but there are a total of 400 plus international universities on this list. Also, please note, if you have 529 savings plans, these also work with all these universities here today. And if you are a vet, there's also the GI Bill. And what's great is all of these institutions also are approved through the Veterans Association. So all of this, I think, is really positive. And there's also a lot of other institutions that are on that list too. If you need more information, I have some articles about some of those as well. So let's really take a moment and breathe and say, all right, is this right for me? So the 4 questions I want you to ask yourself are, do you have a clear vision on what you want to study? Are you a resilient problem solver, or do you want to grow the skill? And there's going to be lots of things thrown at you when you're living abroad. And it's a very different system. So you're going to have to sort of be a cultural ninja and pick yourself up when things go a little crazy. Are you also a self-motivated learner that can handle lectures and independent research? Usually abroad institutions tend to insist that you be very independent when it comes to your learning. I would say in the US, there's a bit more educational handholding that goes on than abroad. So ask yourself that question. And finally, do you want to develop intercultural communication competency and also develop your network? So if you've answered yes to 3 or 4 of these, then you are a perfect fit for doing an abroad degree. If you've answered 1 or 2, don't freak out. But I'm happy to be a thought partner in seeing if there's ways to scaffold those skills. All right, so let's talk about your next steps. So number 1 is you have to discover what your top programs are. You can have 10, 15, I just put 5 up here. Now, how are you going to do this? You can attend webinars like this one. Make sure you're on my mailing list. Actually, you are already going to be automatically on my mailing list by attending this. And as new webinars are coming online, you can gather that data. You can also search databases. mastersportal.com, study.eu are good ones. Next, you need to examine rankings and industry accreditations. Use QS and Times Higher Ed for that. And if you need to, you can use a guide, and that's me. And my job is really just to help you sort through all the morass of information. And the next thing you have to do is research entry requirements and acceptance rates. Do you meet the entry requirements? And make sure you talk with the university to confirm, particularly if you're confused about how any of the frameworks laid out. And then secondly, do you have the experience to be competitive? Usually a lot of the master's programs are not only looking for your academic qualifications, but what relevant experience have you had, either in the lab or in the field? And finally, understand the financial expectations. What is the total cost, tuition and living cost? Will you need to use FAFSA, 529 GI Bill, or private loans? And if you have questions about private loans, please reach out to me. I can explain how that works for international universities. And then ask the university about scholarships. So make sure you've written all this down because that is your homework. All right, now it is time for us to answer some questions. We've purposefully left a good chunk of time here so we can delve deeply into some of the questions. So I'm going to pull some up right now. And all right, we'll start with this one. Is it all right to take a few years off from undergrad and still be eligible for this program and scholarships? So it sounds like you're looking for a gap year of sorts, or gap years. Is there any institution that wants to chime in? I mean, I personally did this myself. I think it's awesome to take some time off. That helps you get some experience and in order to be more competitive. Is there anyone else that wanted to chime in there?
I'll just chime in really quickly as a person who took several years off from undergrad to going into a master's program. I would actually recommend that. I would not recommend going directly into grad school. Get some time for some professional development and that kind of stuff, and some work experience to find what you're really passionate about. And I believe grad school and those opportunities will always be there. So that's not a bad idea.
Great, thanks, Du Bois.
For Massey University, I can tell you, because we have such a range of ages, it's really up to you. If you are the type that just want to keep going, want to go for the master, that's fine. If you want to have a time off and have that experience, that's also fine. In our classrooms, we have the whole variety, also because we have the distance education. We have people who are managers, we are people who are farmers, we are people who have just finished a bachelor degree. So it's completely up to you. And in general, for New Zealand universities, your age will never be a problem and your experience will always be welcome.
All right, thank you, Sandra. The next one is around safety, and Lewis, can you answer that? It's around earthquakes in New Zealand.
Yeah, so I'm sure I'm not the only one who can answer, maybe Fiona, because she's also from Wellington, but New Zealand sits on a number of different fault lines. We're part of the Pacific Ring of Fire. So earthquakes are just a reality that we live with in New Zealand. However, cities that are known to have fault lines running through them, like Wellington, for example, are built to earthquake codes. And so I can speak from my experience. I've lived through a number of earthquakes and it is just a reality that you live with. Fiona, I'm going to throw you on the spot, chuck it to you.
Yeah, I guess if anyone here is from west coast of US, then you're probably used to earthquakes in California around this exciting Pacific Rim of fire. Yeah, it is a really daily occurrence. Like, we have earthquakes actually every day. A lot of them you can't feel. So it is. We have had students who experienced an earthquake for the first time when they are here. And it's quite exciting, and then they get scared, and then exciting, and then they get used to it. So yeah, like Lewis said, we're very prepared for earthquakes in New Zealand. Lots of safety protocols at the universities and in the city when it comes to emergency management.
I will just add to that, the unfortunate thing that happened in Christchurch with the major earthquake was buildings weren't built to an earthquake code because they didn't realise there was a major fault line that ran through there until after the earthquake hit. But now Christchurch is going through a huge rebuild at the moment, so the buildings are built to the top of the earthquake code.
Great, thank you. So we have a question from Julia. She says, so to clarify, working part-time while studying is part of the student visa or a separate work visa? Can Ian Zed take that one?
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Working part-time while studying, is that part of the student visa, or is that is a separate work visa required?
No, that's part of your student visa. So students are eligible to work part-time while they study and full-time during the holidays.
Great, thank you. All right. Next one is, what is the level of expertise required for a master's program? I recently discovered coding, have only taken a couple of classes. I'm about to graduate with a communications degree, wondering how difficult it is to catch up with just a basic understanding. I don't know if there's anybody on the call that has.
Sandra's put her hand up, but I'm also happy to answer. Sandra might have more understanding, but depending on the universities and the type of master's degree, there is a lot of flexibility. So often students can start by doing a postgraduate diploma that gives them the skills to build into the second year of a master's degree. But it will completely vary depending on the particular type of degree and the institution you're looking at. So it does vary. I don't know, Sandra, if you've got anything more you want to add to that one.
Yeah, I would really just echo what you're saying. It really depends what is your bachelor degree and what master you're aiming at, how much similarity there is, and how flexible that specific master is. But there's usually always pathways. If it's not through a postgraduate diploma, let's say you studied chemistry and now you want to do a master in physics, we might have a graduate diploma that paths you into that direction where you do one additional year and then you get into the masters. So it really depends on the specific programs you want to do and the university for that program.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump in to echo that, if you're not sure, you can always apply, and many of our universities will provide that pathway for you. So if you're, declaring that you're really interested in this area, you don't necessarily have the background, there is that opportunity to figure out what that pathway is to get into the master's in terms of that field that you want to be in.
Great, thank you. Andy has a question. How does New Zealand stand with accepting international US students due to COVID-19? Lewis, would you like to take that one?
Sure. So as it stands right now, the New Zealand border is currently closed to all international travellers, except for returning New Zealanders and other exclusions. So we know that will be the case for the remainder of 2020. It's an election year in New Zealand, and we don't know yet when the border will open for international students. So at least for the remainder of this year, New Zealand is not currently accepting any more international students.
Great, thank you. Let's see, we have another one from, looks like anonymous. If I receive a social work degree in New Zealand, like an MSW, am I eligible to practice social work in the US? And Sandra, you wanted to take that one.
Yeah, at Massey we have the Master of Applied Social Work, which is basically for registration as a social worker in New Zealand. But Massey belongs to a range of international organizations. So we have the Asia Pacific Association for Social Work Education, a pathway. the International Association of Schools of Social Work, and the Social Workers Registration Board for New Zealand. So I cannot say as a fact whether that is sufficient for you to be a social worker on graduation, but you can check with the social work organization in the US what their requirements are, whether the accreditation through one of the organizations that I mentioned is sufficient, or whether you have to do an additional test or something additional to that.
Yeah, and I'll chime in here too. I know if, I'm not sure about social work per se, if it's similar to dentistry, for example, each state has a separate way of handling it. And so some states, you know, they sort of take the degree and you run with it. Sometimes you have to level up the degree and take some additional courses depending on what may be missing, and then sometimes it's just like a flat out no. So there's a whole range in here, and sometimes it can be state by state, so it can get sort of confusing. All right, let's see. I have Leora is asking, what's the annual cost for an international student for a master's program before scholarships or financial aid? So that would be generally around 17,000 to 22,000. That's your range of what you're looking at. There could be slightly more expensive for some of the specialized programs. Ellen has a question. Do you have to find a job immediately to stay for the 3-year period after graduation? Can it be any job or only in your field? What happens after the 3-year postgrad period? And can you get an extended work visa or apply for residency? Ooh, Ellen, what a great question. Lewis, do you want to handle that one?
I will attempt to handle it, and I would welcome any of the other people on the call to try and answer it, given I'm not an expert on work visas in New Zealand. However, I do know that for a post-study work visa, you're eligible to work any job. It doesn't have to be related to what you studied. And to get residency in New Zealand, you need to have previously had some kind of temporary visa, whether that's a study visa or a work visa. So there are pathways to then gain your residency, but I'm afraid I don't know the details of it, and so I would welcome anyone else who knows more than I do to pipe up if they do know.
Anna, do you have anything from your own experience?
Sorry, I'm muted there for a second. I was answering a question, so if you can just jog or take me back to the origins.
Oh, sure. It was around what happens after the 3-year postgrad period? Can you get an extended work visa or apply for residency?
Yeah, so what's great about New Zealand is that flexibility. So I am from the US. You might have guessed that from my accent. I came to New Zealand and I was able to get residency. So now I'm a permanent resident in New Zealand. I had a work visa and I was able to apply through the points system. So it really depends on what area that you're working in, and you can learn more about residency possibilities on the Immigration New Zealand website. But really at this stage, getting a master's degree or PhD and getting access to those work rights is going to be such a instrumental edge in terms of if you're looking for that next step and you want to get residency in New Zealand. But again, it's my personal experience, and definitely check out the Immigration New Zealand website for more information there.
Great. Thank you, Anna. It's good to have your personal experience. Let's see, we've got a few ones here. One of them is from Leora. Does New Zealand offer merit scholarships for American students? And I think any of the unis can speak to the merit scholarships and how those work.
So I guess each university is different. We all offer scholarships to international students. Some might be very subject specific. If you're studying a specific subject, they'll be applicable, and some might have broader ones. So for example, at Victoria University of Wellington, we have a general international student scholarship that all international students can apply for, no matter what nationality they are, and that is based on merit. So it is based on merit and students are awarded accordingly. And yes, anyone else?
In Massey University, all the scholarships I listed on my slide are based on merit as well. It has to be top students academically.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's look at, hold on, the question just moved. Jadalyn is asking, are master's dual degrees an option? Are they common? And I think probably what you're asking here, instead of dual degrees with another university, perhaps within the same institution, would maybe be what you're asking. I'm not sure. Or it could be with separate institutions, like could there be a dual degree that happens? Is there anything that jumps to your mind?
So I'll just answer. I think every institution probably has different agreements with different institutions in terms of a dual degree possibility. So that's something that you'll have to look at in terms of each institution. But if you're thinking about getting additional master's degrees within New Zealand or within the same New Zealand university, that's absolutely possible. That's something to explore if you're looking for different areas, or you might just consider an interdisciplinary degree that really tacks on the different interests that you have. My New Zealand colleagues, feel free to chime in if you'd like to add anything else.
Yeah, I think that's a really good approach. You'll see across all of the universities there are some incredibly interdisciplinary subjects, and some of them can be pretty niche in terms of different areas, but also some of them can be pretty broad. And I think, again, it depends on the type of master's or PhD degree you're looking potentially at doing. So some of them that are coursework masters, for example, can be really broad, and you can tailor it to sort of be in the areas that you're interested in. So I think there are a few options for that.
All right, thank you. Let's keep moving. We have a question in regards to New Zealand College for Chiropractic. Do all individuals complete the same 4 to 5 year track? Or if an individual has a 4-year undergraduate degree from the US, does that shave some time off?
So yeah, happy to answer that question. It really depends on what exactly it was that you have studied in your undergrad. So as I said, our prerequisites are very specific. So we look very specifically into the learning outcomes of each of the courses that you have done, and then decide and assess whether you have covered those this year of prerequisite studies. If there's anything else that you can cross-credit usually into our year 1 or year 2 at our campus, then that is assessed individually once you have enrolled with us. So it doesn't actually shave time off. It most likely will actually just make your course load a little lighter if you can cross-credit anything, such as neuroanatomy, or if you have studied a nutrition course, that is part of our degree as well. So you might be able to cross-credit that and then get refunds for those courses. There was also another question about the equivalent to a DC program. And so, yes, our Bachelor of Chiropractic, it sounds very different to what you would study in North America, but it is equivalent to a DC program. So as soon as you register in the state or country that you want to practice in, then you can call yourself a Doctor of Chiropractic. There's no difference there. And there was also another question about
Catherine. Hold on. We only have about 1 more minute. I want to make sure we get to a few things. Sorry about that. So I think the last question is really, really important. We have time for 1 more, and then the other questions I'm just going to make sure when we'll send them out to everybody when we send out the video. So if you didn't get something answered, don't freak out. Just make sure that you get answers. The last one I really want to spend time with here is how inclusive and welcoming is New Zealand to racial minorities, and what feedback have students given with regard to living or safety? I've heard that different regions of New Zealand vary in being welcoming to foreigners who are non-white, and I'm wondering.
I'll hop in that one first. So I've had the pleasure of visiting New Zealand in November and found it to be an incredibly welcoming place. As Lewis mentioned about the founding document, really the work the government has done with honoring and returning land and returning resources and money and helping invest with their indigenous peoples, and just how multicultural it was really surprised me. With that said, nowhere is perfect. Nobody is perfect. There's still some of the same challenges that marginalized identities in New Zealand still face some of the same challenges that marginalized identities face in the US, what I observed. But I think it's not as well known, and the narrative about New Zealand is more of this place of, you know, adventure and all these things, but there's a deep cultural history there and a bicultural history that the US could actually learn a lot from. Anyone else like to comment as well?
I'd be happy to comment. As Massey University, where we have the 3 different cities. And yeah, you're right, there might be somewhere where people are more used to white people or more Pacific people or those sort of things. But in reality, everybody's used to a huge variety of nationalities, religions. There's a question on LGBT. It's very, very open country. There's no problem in that. It's taken very naturally in all possible senses. And you will find not much issues in that sense. Denise, you're muted.
Thank you. We're at time. I want to thank everybody for coming. And if your question didn't get answered, just make sure you type it in there. We're going to collect all the questions and be able to send them out best to our ability to everybody. So if you need some additional assistance, I just want to make sure you know how to reach out to people. There's my information. If you just need some guidance along the way, I do offer a free 20-minute discovery call. And if you haven't done so yet, there's a graduate guide abroad that you can download that really walks you through different countries and how things work. And for New Zealand inquiries in particular, here's the email, and ENZ then will make sure it gets to the right university as well. So thanks to everybody for being on the call today. I'm very appreciative to everybody's wisdom. I really hope this was useful for you, and it puts you in relationship with these amazing Kiwi universities, and you can start to develop relationships and figure out, is this the right fit for you? So thank you for being here, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.